two.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, and welcome once again to our weekly media briefing and public health update with Montgomery County Executive Marc Elrich. I'm Lorna Virgili, Hispanic Public Information Officer, and joining us today is Health Officer Dr. Keisha Davis, as well as Mr. Sean O'Donnell, who is a Program Administrator, Public Health Emergency Preparedness and Response for the Department of Health and Human Services. Dr. Earl Stoddard, who's Assistant Chief Administrative Officer for the county. And joining us today, we actually have a long list of guests today to address two really important topics. Our guest is Montgomery County Council Member Natalie Fanny Gonzalez. Good afternoon to you, Ms. Council Member. Dr. Scott Bruton, who is the Acting Director for the Department of Housing and Community Affairs. Joining us from Action in Montgomery is a team composed of Pilar Olmedo Gordon. Good afternoon, Pilar. Barbara Tomar, Jeff Egan, and also Maria Vasquez, who is a tenant at Westchester West Apartments. Matthew Crossley, Senior Manager, Multifamily Acquisitions Enterprise Community Development, Inc., is also joining us. And they're here to discuss the recent purchase of an apartment complex building by the county that will be used to protect housing for families. Also joining us today are newly confirmed members of the County Executive's Administration. For the Department of Health and Human Services Director, Dr. James Bridgers. Good afternoon to you, Dr. Bridgers. And the Department of Environmental Protection Director, John Munger, should be here as well. They are here to give us an update on their roles with the county. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Members of the media, during the Q&A portion of this presentation, please raise your hand. And with that, I am going to toss it to you, Mr. County Executive. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, and thank everybody for joining us again today. Today, we're going to start talking about affordable housing. We are trying to provide more affordable options to our residents in the county, and it's a top priority of our administration. During my second inaugural address in December, I specifically highlighted affordable housing and our efforts to combat climate change as two of my key focus areas. The status quo solutions and approaches to affordable housing have not been working for the last 2 decades. That's an understatement. And we have to change our approach. And I've been pretty straightforward that we need a 3-pronged approach to create more affordable housing. That is to produce, preserve, and the third category we're going to talk today about is protecting affordable housing. There's affordable housing in this county that we are losing at an alarming rate. The county has less than half of the affordable units that it had in the year 2000, and we're continuing to watch them evaporate. Parking planning predicts that by 2030, we'll lose another 11,000 of our remaining 20,000 odd units, and that's just not acceptable. This is becoming an increasingly difficult place to live, and our strategies are absolutely inadequate to deal with the problem. Last December, we were approached by Action Montgomery with the concerns about the tenants of the Westchester West Apartments in Aspen Hill, that the building was being sold and that the potential buyer was going to raise rents above 5.5%. It's a 385 unit, mostly consisting of working class residents. These are folks who simply cannot afford this kind of rent increase. It would have led to large-scale displacement of many of the tenants in this development. If we didn't do something here, many of them would have likely lost their housing. Therefore, I directed DHCA to explore having the county buy this building, utilizing the county's right of first refusal to match the sale offer and purchase this building and then resell it to a partner who is committed to not gouging the residents on their rent and trying to keep these units more affordable. And I'm happy and pleased today to announce that we achieved this in just over 6 months. The county purchased this building for $67 million on June 8th, and we sold this building to Enterprise Community Development. And Enterprise is one of those great partners that we have who shares this mission of protecting and preserving existing affordable housing, and we've worked with them before. Under the terms of this deal, Westchester West will serve 35 households with incomes below 50% of varied and median income. That's roughly below $50,000. 275 households with incomes between 50% and 60% of area median income will be protected, and another 35 units will be unrestricted so as to not displace residents who earn more than 60% of area median income during their tenancy. This is truly, a broad problem here, because if we do developments that are exclusively below 60%, we exacerbate the problem for other parts of our county, residents in our county who can't find housing below market rate. The gap between affordable housing and market rate is now, on the order of $1,000 plus for comparable units. And so we need a broader range of affordability. That's one of the things we're seeking to do. The bottom line is we've saved homes of hundreds of families that would have been forced out if we did not intervene. And I've seen firsthand too many times in this county that when affordable housing apartment buildings are bought, they're too often rehabbed and the current inhabitants are priced out. If we're going to solve our affordable housing problems, we have to get serious and use everything in our toolbox, including our right of first refusal, to intervene in similar transactions that will price out current residents. And we're using right of first refusal more aggressively to actually gain controls of properties rather than get 5 or 10 years agreements to control rents, because we all know that 5 or 10 years from now, we're going to be staring at the same problem. And it's not okay to temporarily forestall the eviction of people when what we really need to do is provide long-term affordability. Today, I'm glad we're being joined by Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez, who supported our efforts, as well as the team that made this deal happen, Acting DHCA Director Scott Bruton, Action in Montgomery, and Enterprise Community Development. And I'm also pleased to welcome Ms. Maria Vasquez, a tenant from Westchester West, to share her thoughts on the deal. So I'm going to stop now and turn this over to our guests.
Lorna, should I go?
Yes, it's your turn, ma'am.
Just making sure. I am so happy. I think that today's victory shows that immigrant women specifically, when they organize, they win. When I first got elected in this gig as a council member in December, the first phone call that I received in my office was from AIM, Action in Montgomery, telling me about this situation in Aspen Hill. And we quickly organized a meeting completely in Spanish about several issues, not just on the housing, but other issues too, that I'm not gonna get into right now. And it was them who pushed hard to make sure that the over 340 families in this building will stay in their communities. And this happened because of them, not because of me, not because of the county executive, Marc Elrich, but because women organized. So another example, that language, immigration status is never an obstacle in a county like Montgomery County that welcomes everybody. Also, I love the fact that, I'm just a council member, but the fact that I was able to work with the county executive and Scott Burton, the new DHCA. Did we confirm you already? Not yet, right? You're still, no, not yet. Okay, soon. Director, he's still acting, but the job is yours anyway. It's honestly great to work with people that really care about our community. And as the county executive mentioned, yes, we need to build more housing, but we also need to preserve what we have. And housing preservation, especially when it targets low-income communities, where that their salaries are not increasing anytime soon, it's our duty to protect them. So I'm just proud to be here and celebrate with all of you. And I think now we can pass it to Ms. Maria Vasquez, una mujer con poder. And I know, Pilar, you're gonna translate, right? For Maria, right? Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Ladies, can you please unmute Ms. Olmedo and Ms. Vasquez? Por favor, si abren el micrófono. Gracias.
Agradezco al Ejecutivo, a Miss Natalie, por esta oportunidad que nos brindan. Y también agradezco grandemente, me invitan a un compromiso y a formarnos más, a conocer más sobre nuestros derechos como inquilinos y también nuestros deberes como inquilinos. Y estamos grandemente agradecidos porque nuestros hijos tienen una gran oportunidad de vivir en un lugar seguro. Es su hogar, es lo único que han conocido como hogar y estamos grandemente agradecidos.
Ms. Lucia said that she's very grateful with the county executive, Marc Elrich, and also with the council member, Fanny Gonzalez, for this opportunity that you are giving to them. And she's also feel that she feels like committed to know a little more about their rights as tenants, but also their duties as tenants. And she's very happy that she can give a secure housing for her children and also the other people's children, because this is their home and this is the way that they can be safe.
Muchísimas gracias, Amber. Thank you very much for those words, ladies. Dr. Bruton, do you have any remarks regarding this?
I'll start off with saying I really want to thank the County Executive Elrich and Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez for their leadership on the exercise of the right of first refusal at this property, and to thank AIM for their work with organizing the tenants, and especially the tenants for their perseverance in dealing with the county government, persistence in dealing with the county government in encouraging us to move forward with the right of first refusal. In addition to the affordability restrictions that the county executive already mentioned, I do want to acknowledge that our partner, Enterprise Community Development, also agreed to some non-standard protections for tenants. And that would be that they agreed to have rent stabilization at the property. And so rents on affordability restricted units will be going up not greater than the voluntary rent guidelines or 3%, whichever is higher in a particular year. So that's wonderful to make sure that when rent increases for affordability levels can go above that, the tenants will only have, those restricted rents. So their rent increases will be more stable over time and get at that anti-displacement aspect of what we're trying to do with the right of first refusal. And Enterprise Community Development also agreed that they will observe just cause eviction for all of the affordability restricted units. So no tenant will have their lease ended just by choice. It will have to be a lease violation. So while the county is not able to pass just cause eviction, Enterprise Community Development agreed to do this voluntarily during the time of our agreement on the property.
Thank you, Dr. Bruton. Any other remarks from the members of the Action in Montgomery team that are joining us today? Barbara, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Barbara Tomar. I'm a volunteer at AIM and a member of Cedar Lane Unitarian. I think Mr. Elrich did a great job in describing sort of the chain of events that happened since the residents first received notice in December that the property was going to be sold. I have to give a shout out to the folks from AIM, the coordinators and the organizers, because they are an intrepid group, and they have developed a lot of trust in the community, with the community. And so as soon as that notice went out, the women from Westchester were all on it, and AIM was able to get in there, get some meetings together, first with Councilwoman Fanny Gonzalez, and then with the several members of the housing department who met with us in February. And at the time, they weren't sure that the right of first refusal was going to move forward. But a month later, we found out from the county executive's office that in fact it had. So we were really pleased with the whole thing. And I have to also give a shout out, as Fanny Gonzalez did, those women from the Westchester Apartments and the Hewitt Avenue group, they are really intrepid and they are not going to be go unheard. So to me, as a volunteer, I just think it's great when there's cooperation. It's very gratifying to see government at work. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ms. Tomar. Any remarks coming in from you, Mr. Crossley?
Yes, first and foremost, I'd like to thank the county, DHA, Scott Bruton, and especially the director. Teaming up with the county on the right of first refusal and being chosen is something that we don't take lightly. And when the outreach kind of the phone call came, we were very excited to get on site at the property and see, what we'd be able to do on a long-term basis, but also the families we'd be able to affect by able to preserve the affordability there. So I think this is a great opportunity for us on the long term. For our background is preserving affordable housing, and this is actually our largest workforce housing acquisition to date. So we continue to be active in the market, and actually one of our main offices in downtown Silver Spring. So this is in our backyard. We like being part of the community, and we are very happy to preserve the affordability at the property.
Thank you very much, Mr. Crossley. Mr. Egan, any remarks coming from you?
I just want to thank everyone, Mark, Natalie, everybody, for making this happen, but also caution that landlords and developers see Montgomery County as a cash register. And we are a target, and that we may very well be faced with more situations like this in the not too distant future. We need to be nimble, we need to be responsive, and listen to the community. That happened in this case, and I thank you so much to all of you. But I just have to leave just a note of warning that this, I don't think, is going to be the last time that we're going to be discussing right of first refusal, and that we're going to need the same kind of cooperation that we got this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Egan. Ms. Olmedo Gordon, I know you translated for Ms. Vasquez. Do you have any remarks yourself?
Yes, well, I am a community organizer, so I am the one working very closely with the community. I think that right now, after saying thank you to all of you, especially Executive Marc Elrich and Council Member Fanny Gonzalez, I think it's time to celebrate. So the community is gonna celebrate this victory that is theirs on July the 5th. In their place in Westchester West Apartments at 5:30 p.m. So we are coordinating this with the County Executive Office and also with the office with the Council Member Fanny Gonzalez. So everyone is very welcome there that day.
Thank you very much, Ms. Olmedo Gordon. Members of the media, now we're going to open it up for the Q&A portion of this presentation. Any questions regarding the new acquisition of this apartment complex? And I see Emmanuel Villalobos from Telemundo already raised his hand. And members of the media, just raise your hand and we'll go through the line. Good afternoon, Emmanuel.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity. This question is a follow-up for Mr. Bruton. Do you have some data about how many families are being struggling with the issue of high rents in the county or facing similar situations, like people of the complex that recently you purchased?
Yes, we have that data. I don't have it right off the top of my head, but our public information officers can work with us to provide you the numbers that you're looking for over the coming hours.
Awesome. The second question is, Mr. Elrich said that families in Westchester West was in risk to an increase of 5.5% in the rents. And with this purchase, you save those families to face this scenario. What do you think is the better percentage to the increase of the rents to the residents in the county?
So, there are a couple of rent stabilization bills in front of the council. I firmly believe that we should limit rent increases to inflation pretty much, and allow for provisions for landlords if their costs are above inflation rates. That makes sense. But generally and historically, landlords have been able to live within inflation rates, and we need a stabilization bill that keeps rents within the inflation increases. So I think that's important. If you look at a picture of Montgomery County, you've got about 50,000 households who earn less than $50,000. and they're spending 50, 60% of their income on rent. There is no way that these communities can survive year after year rent increases. They're going to push the cost to the point that they're no longer going to be able to live there. So this is a good deal with the 3% minimum and the ability to go higher if inflation's higher. It's something that works for the new landlord enterprise, and it's something we think we can make work for other landlords. But we're going to lose people if we're not aggressive about protecting existing affordable housing. And to the point of this project, and Jeff Egan's point is, we only got to do this because the project was up for sale. If this had been the current owner and they announced a 5.5% increase or an 8% or 10 and 15 and 20, like we're seeing people do, the county is right now powerless to do anything. We can tell them what our voluntary guidelines are, but we have no ability to say that these are enforceable. The county's had voluntary guidelines for over 50 years, but they're always voluntary. The bulk of landlords abide by the voluntary guidelines, but not all landlords do. So we would have been powerless here have it not been for the right of first refusal, which is why a solution, and we're not going to be able to do this. The county doesn't have $67 million to pop out every time an apartment complex comes up for sale. We're working with HSC to greatly increase the amount of money we have available. We're working with some social investors who are interested in helping us grow a fund that would give us a lot more money. But it is still very difficult to conceive of getting enough money in to let us act on every right of first refusal opportunity that we're going to have. So it's going to struggle. And to Jeff Egan's point, if you can't buy these properties and protect people, we need another tool, which frankly is rent stabilization, in order to protect more families from this kind of threat. It's real, and it's going to really, harm people in this county. And our goal is to make this county, this is our workforce. They're not making $50,000 because they're not working. They're working every day and only making $50,000. And if you're, or less, I should say. So if you're making less than that and you can't afford housing, it's not because you're not working. It's because the housing prices exceed your incomes. We can't be obtuse to that. It's a problem.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive. Ms. Spade, Moco 360, you have some questions for regarding this topic? Good afternoon. We don't hear you. Do you want to ask a question? I see you. Yes.
Okay. First question, either for Scott or for County Executive. For our readers who may not be familiar with the topic, could someone please explain right of first refusal just in layperson's terms?
Yeah. A property goes on the market for sale, a rental property, and the county has a fixed time period if it wants to buy the property to acquire the property. So we've been active in this for a while. We've done this more than once. It's not our first rodeo, so to speak. And but we do it with the intention of having a partner, in this case, Enterprise, and in other cases, it's been Enterprise, to step in and take over the long-term ownership. The county doesn't, own and operate affordable housing on its own. We do this in partnership with HSC. We do it in partnership with Montgomery Housing Partnership and others, and this time we did it in partnership with Enterprise. So we have these nonprofits who are mission-driven to preserve affordable housing, and so we're able to work with them, and we're able to do projects like this, and we anticipate we're going to be doing more.
You mentioned that you've done this more than once. Any estimation you could give on how many times this has occurred?
I'd be like what Scott said, like we could get you the information on how many times we've done this, but we've done it more than once. I think what we're doing now is more focusing on, rather than getting rental agreements for 5 years or 8 years or whatever, we're focusing on actually getting long-term control over the property so that we just don't buy temporary affordability. We're able to provide permanent affordability.
Gotcha. And then second follow-up question, similarly, as Jeff mentioned, this likely isn't going to be a one-off situation for the county. Are you currently working with either enterprise or other partners to attempt to stabilize or protect other developments with affordable housing in the county?
I can't tell, Scott, do you want to talk about which, or do you want to mention which ones, or just tell them what we're doing?
Sure. We have we always have DHCA always has a pipeline of affordable properties that they're either new construction or existing preservation deals that we're hoping to covenant or put contracts for long-term affordability on. And we always have a few dozen properties in the pipeline, and affordable housing developments usually take at least a few years to go through the development process, from acquisition and rehabilitation to stabilization. And so properties kind of move forward and back in the pipeline. And so, yes, we always have a stable of properties that we're working with, either HOC or the affordable housing nonprofit, usually affordable housing developers in the county, to acquire and to preserve or create for the long term.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Em. Next up, Johnny Yataco, Washington Hispanic. Good afternoon, Johnny.
Good afternoon, everyone. Johnny Yataco, Washington Hispanic. In this specific transaction, were there any other organizations involved in this deal?
I guess I can answer that. No, it was just the way that the ROFR works currently in the county. If the county exercises its right of first refusal, then we must purchase the property. And then, because the county is not set up to be the owner and operator of affordable housing, we turn around on the same day or within 24 hours and sell that to a development partner of our choosing. In this case, it's Enterprise Community Development. That's a well-known national as well as locally focused nonprofit developer of affordable housing.
Now, I have a follow-up question. I don't know if in the terms and conditions, because now I understand Enterprise Community Development is the owner of this property, are the owners of this property, correct?
Yes, sir.
Is there any stipulation in that deal that if the tenants organize, that they could purchase these units in the future from them?
There is not that sort of stipulation in this deal. If you're talking about something like a condominium or a cooperative conversion.
Correct, yes.
Those are very complicated deals, and especially for a property of this size, 345 units, at current price, $67 million, over $75 million with closing costs. And so I always, when I've counseled tenant organizations in other jurisdictions on exercising rights to purchase, there's always a cautionary that for large properties, it can be very difficult without the assistance of a developer. And usually condo conversions from a rental to a conversion usually proceeds under the auspices of a developer, the rehab, and then is slowly turned over to the tenants after usually 75% plus of the units are sold. It's really not feasible under the housing finance system in the United States for properties above several units to be bought collectively by a group of tenants, because you can't just take out an individual mortgage and then pool your individual mortgages to buy a property. You need to buy the property as some type of incorporated entity, and it requires a loan in total for that. Probably more information than you wanted to know, but we are, as a follow-up, we are working on trying to improve the ability of tenants, especially in smaller properties, to be able to exercise their right of refusal rights, and the county's ability to help assist with financing in the creation of smaller limited equity or shared equity cooperatives.
Perfect. Thank you.
I'd just add to that. I'm very interested, and I have talked. We meet monthly with the affordable housing developers in the county, and it has been a priority of mine to get people to move toward an ownership model. It's very difficult. I mean, if we had to buy this within the time frame of this deal, there is no way 345 tenants would be able to have created an association, found the financing, and been able to put together a deal by themselves. And so, that's why we worked with a partner. Hopefully, as we continue to do more of these, we will work with our partners to help us achieve ownership goals, because I think everybody who's in this, whether you're doing rental housing right now, or you do some ownership housing, the truth of the matter is you're never going to build wealth in the Hispanic community or in the Black community that's been historically deprived of opportunities in this country, like 300 plus years of deprivation. It's hard to build wealth without ownership. Right. Anybody in the white community knows, how many families I know that were able to take a house that your parents bought, and the parents take out an equity line and they put the kid through school, or they give them a deposit for down payment on a house of their own. That doesn't happen in communities that are deprived of ownership. So the wealth gap becomes a multi-generational wealth gap. But if you can't help your kids, that means your kids struggle to get a footing. And so I'm hopeful that we'll be able to work more with our nonprofits to include transition over a period of time to ownership, rather than simply having all these properties stay as rental properties. I sincerely would hope that we can work more deals where there's a long-term agreement to convert to ownership. You cannot address social justice at the end of the day if you don't eventually get into the ownership game.
If I can jump in very quickly, we have a project, the one on Randolph Road that we just recently did. It has ownership as part of the whole deal. That's a great example. We need more like those. So.
And we supported a condo conversion in, actually a co-op conversion in Tacoma Park with a smaller unit building that, we help provide money for so they can make the conversion. So we can do some of this. We're not, not at scale yet, and we're going to need more money. I think this is another issue that council's going to have to wrestle with. The demand out there. I think Scott and I have talked about this. Could pretty much exhaust our existing resources. We're not even into the new year yet. We could commit almost everything we have. And to your point, Jeff, you're absolutely right. More things are going to come on the horizon. We're going to have to figure out how to act rather than to passively say, sorry, we can't do it. I don't want to have to do that.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive and Council Member. Do you have any follow-up questions, Mr. Yatako?
No.
Thank you. Members of the media, any additional questions regarding the purchase of Westchester West by the county? Raise your hand on the chat. I don't see any more questions regarding this topic, but before we go, I do see that Telemundo DC and Univision DC are here on this call. Would you like to say some words in Spanish, Council Member Fanny Gonzalez?
Sí, un minuto. Just gonna brief summary. Estamos aquí celebrando la gran victoria de nuestras mujeres poderosas inmigrantes de Aspen Hill, quienes se organizaron al ver de que su comunidad la iban a vender y no sabían qué iba a pasar. Primero me llamaron a mi oficina, nos comunicamos con el ejecutivo Marc Elrich, y logramos tener una gran victoria donde estos apartamentos van a permanecer en nuestra comunidad a bajo costo, y reenfacito que realmente es una victoria de la comunidad inmigrante, especialmente las mujeres que lograron esto.
Thank you very much for that, for those kind words. Well, we're done with this particular topic. Thank you to the team from Action in Montgomery and the other guests. You can remain on the call if you like. If not, you can move forward to the rest of your day. Thank you for joining us today. And Mr. County Executive, we move forward with the other topics and the public health update.
So Yeah, thank you everybody for joining us. Scott, thank you so much, Natalie, and everybody from AIM and from Enterprise. This is a great project that we were able to pull together with all these partners. And so I hope hopefully everybody's involved in this will help support our efforts to get the funding possible to do more of this, and hopefully people will get active in discussions about how we limit rent increases to prevent the loss of housing. Because like I said, absent the fact that we could buy this property, that we would have had no other tool to protect the tenants in these rent increases if we had simply not become owners of this. So it's there's work to do, but we kind of know the path we got to go on. So moving on to other topics, I was to talk about the county council confirmed 2 of my appointments to help lead the county. Many of you who followed our county closely over the last few years are familiar with Dr. James Bridgers. He's been an essential member of our COVID-19 response team since the beginning. And Dr. Bridgers has more than 25 years experience in program administration, development, and implementation, ranging from substance abuse and mental health to cancer prevention programs. And I want to welcome him in his new role as the director of HHS and let him discuss how he's excited to bring together communities and our staff to tackle our lifespan challenges. Dr. Bridgers.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Mr. County Executive, for your trust in me in leading the Department of Health and Human Services. We've worked together over the past 4.5 years under the Health and Human Services umbrella to really protect the citizens of Montgomery County through our COVID effort and our public health. I'm glad that Dr. Davis has joined our team and look forward to a lot of the challenges addressing some of the needs of the community. As you indicated aptly, that we have work to do. We have work to do in the mental health and substance use space. We have work to do, as we just had a very lengthy conversation on housing stabilization and working with our services to end and prevent homelessness. And we have work to do in our mental health and substance use disorder space. We've been working very diligently in our behavioral health and crisis services area with Dr. Santiago and looking to bring an adolescent treatment facility in the county and working with our partners. So I'm excited to lead the agency now forward, looking at COVID recovery challenges, but also more importantly, the challenges that face our great Montgomery County citizens across their lifespan from birth to death. So again, thank you for the opportunity to be a member of your senior director staff. And I look forward to doing great things with our agency.
Thank you. You know, one of the things we've talked about is taking a broader role in community health, that, you know, the health department, instead of being seen as I'm responding to measles, I'm responding to this outbreak or that outbreak or this community health issue, to begin looking at the whole of community health. And I think, the more we understand, for example, about educational achievement or mental health, things like food security, access to affordable housing, access to healthcare are all things that affect people's mental health. It's not simply that somebody's in a mental health crisis. There are factors that put a lot of people in mental health crisis. We have a lot of kids struggling in school. These are not all problems that are going to get solved by teachers or by curriculum or any of that. A lot of the struggles are rooted in things like food insecurity and housing insecurity. So we're not in a world of isolated silos, and we never were, but I think it's, people haven't always made the connections between policies in the health sphere and outcomes in the long term in mental health or in education. And that's the kind of work that we're going to be doing more of and raising more consciousness about. And I want to thank you for joining our team. And, we did work over the last 4.5 years. We produced some of the best results in the country in dealing with COVID, and you were a part of that. So you definitely demonstrated what you were capable of doing. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
My other appointment is John Munger, and he's joining the county after serving as Assistant Deputy Administrator of the United States Environmental Protection Agency. And he has an impressive resume that includes serving as counsel to the Presidential Commission formed to investigate the 2010 Deepwater Horizon oil spill and assignments in the Obama administration that focused on transportation and air quality. He's been a policymaker, and now he wants to implement those plans and make sure they work as intended and to do the most amount of good for the Montgomery County residents and our environment. And so I invite John to say a few words, and I'm excited to have him on board here.
Mr. County Executive, I do not see him here on the call at this moment. So you can move forward with other topics. Okay.
I will move on. So in other environmental news, the county is always seeking way to be innovative and sustainable in order to reduce our carbon emissions. And recently we got an opportunity that was too good to let it get away. A new agreement with WSSC will allow the water company to provide methane gas by allowing MCDOT to use it to power some of our ride-on buses. The methane gas is captured during the wastewater treatment process, and instead of being released as one of the most dangerous greenhouse gases, as it has been in the past, that methane is now going to be converted at the Piscataway Bioenergy Facility and become renewable natural gas powering our buses for the next 5 years. So it's not without some pollution, and obviously as we move to electric and hydrogen, that's going to be better. But as part of this bridge, using methane that otherwise would be released into the atmosphere and using it to power our buses is an important thing for us to be able to do. Maryland's largest water utility produces about 8,000 tons of biosolids every month. And once construction on the bioenergy facility is complete in the fall of 24, all biosolids from WSSC Water's 5 plants will be delivered to the new facility. And through an innovative technologies, the amount of biosolids left over from the new treatment process will be significantly reduced in quantity, and it will be cleaner. In addition to our ride-on buses, some county facilities will also be able to use the converted natural gas to help reduce our carbon footprint. And I'm thinking about this now. I know another place we might be able to use this natural gas, and so stay tuned. Our climate action goals reduce emissions by 80% by 2027 and 100% by 2035, cannot be done and aren't going to be done all at once. And so every sensible measure we can take as we move along this path is necessary and important for us to do. So I'm very happy we've taken this step, and you'll be hearing more from us as we go on, because there are a lot of things we're doing and are in process of doing. Finally, on a community health update, it is once again mercifully short. COVID-19 activity remains extremely low in Montgomery County and throughout the state. Hospitalizations are also very low, with just a few hospital beds supporting people who've tested positive for COVID. I encourage you to continue to take advantage of our free take-home test kits and masks that are available at libraries across the county. DHHS is making vaccines and bivalent boosters available for anyone who hasn't gotten a bivalent booster since they hit the market last September. Staying current on the vaccines is important. As long as COVID carries a risk of death, this is the surest way to prevent yourself from dying. So this should be irresistible to people, and hopefully it'll become more irresistible as we move on. But our goal is to keep people safe, and we're going to continue to play a role front and center in making sure people can get vaccinated here in the county. I'm going to turn this over now to our Public Health Emergency Preparedness Manager, Sean O'Donnell, for his report before you take your questions. So Sean, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive. Again, the news, as our County Executive has stated, is very good right now related to COVID. We're tracking globally, have not seen increases in spread. We've not seen any new variants that are causing challenges locally in significant health ways. Our hospitalizations and our case rates continue to be very low, some of the lowest we've had in years. across the state, the case rate is under 1 per 100,000 on a daily basis. And ours is as well in Montgomery County. So you can just see it's good news across most of the state, across most of the world right now. So this is all great. Our hospitalizations are down to 10 patients across the county with a COVID diagnosis. Only one of those are in the ICU. So again, just emphasizing the good news. You can see across the state, the hospitalizations remain relatively low as well. Just to add on, we're tracking along, of course, in developments that are happening at the federal level. We've noted that the FDA has voted recently on the construct of an updated vaccine for the fall. They haven't determined exactly which strain to include, but it is looking like there will be a new vaccine at some point, either September or October. Meanwhile, again, anyone who has not gotten the updated vaccine since last September should get it. And certainly our seniors and our immunocompromised are eligible to get a second dose of that updated vaccine. So those are the major COVID points. Appreciate all the efforts our colleagues do in environmental health and in disease control to help track new and emerging diseases. Nothing to report on that front. I do know that our disease control and our school health services have secured a grant that will allow them to offer in their back to school clinics, both the required back to school vaccines as well as COVID vaccinations. So I know many parents will go see their pediatricians to get those vaccines for their children. And you're welcome to ask your pediatrician if your child is due for a COVID shot to get that as well. But at the county sites, we'll be offering both of those shots. Now, I'd like to ask Dr. Davis or Dr. Stoddard if they have anything else they would like to add at this time.
No, nothing additional. I think you captured it all. Thank you.
Good as well.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Members of the media, now we are going to open it up again for the Q&A portion of this presentation regarding the public health update and/or I see Suzanne Pollack has her hand up. Good afternoon, Suzanne.
I'm sorry, is this only about the health update?
Health update and or other questions.
Okay, I'm going for and or others. I just wanted to see if the county has any plans or is doing anything regarding the fact that marijuana will be legal as of July 1st. Is there anything targeted, or if you can just update me on that, I'd appreciate it.
So you're anticipating next week's presser. We're going to talk about the both the state regulations and what the county's going to do. We want to be able to give people kind of a comprehensive view of what reform is going to look like, because this is not as simple as on July 1st anybody can smoke pot anywhere. That is not the way this is going to work. And we want everybody to be clear about what the restrictions are. So we're planning on doing an in-depth briefing on this next week.
I would also add, you're going to see starting next week, the Public Information Office is working on a campaign, including graphics and other, social media, long form media, multiple languages, efforts to educate the public. And I think the thing that the county executive mentioned that's really important is it's not just telling people what is coming. We're also telling people what is not coming, because we don't want people doing things that they believe are legal that are not actually legalized under the current state statute. And it's important to recognize that, really this effort began on January 1 with the expungement and the reduction to civil penalties for possession. But it will actually continue on several phases of legalization that proceed forward. There are tranches of the permits that are going to be issued by the state for various entities. And so really, for example, those who can sell on July 1 are going to be limited to the medical providers who have sought permission to be also recreational providers. But presumably, and we expect a number of additional recreational providers distributors will come on board over the course of the year. There are various dates and deadlines for when they come on board, and we'll be explaining all of that when we talk in depth next Wednesday. But again, you will see it as part of a campaign. I believe Dr. Davis will be doing Spanish language interview on Tuesday to talk about some of the health impacts. And so we recognize it's coming in 10 days, and we'll be making a big push starting next week, but really will continue on for the next several months.
Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Sattard. Epsi, again, MOPA 36, you have questions?
Hey again, I have a quick question for the county executive on the topic of public safety. In our newsroom recently, we've been covering a number of recent incidents involving auto crimes like carjackings and thefts. I was wondering if you could tell me about any recent county initiatives or efforts to curb this specific kind of crime.
Earl, do you want to talk about the programs the department's doing?
Yeah, so interestingly, we've seen some success in certain areas. So I think the Silver Spring district just sent out a notification to the business community that actually, and I want to make sure, I don't know if this is still true of the last week. I think it still is, but during the entire month of May, we only had one carjacking in the Silver Spring district, the 3rd district. And in the previous one to that was in April, I think mid-April, around April 18th. And so they've actually been doing some high profile details. And the other thing they've also been doing is really the deployment of license plate readers has been really valuable in preventing carjackings and addressing stolen vehicles. Because I think one of the things that we've learned a lot over the last years is that those stealing cars, whether it be a carjacking or just a stolen vehicle that's on the side of the road, are utilizing other stolen vehicles to get to that location and then further that crime. And so we found great success in using license plate readers to intervene in those cases. And so we're actively looking right now at additional license plate reader and camera platforms to supplement the existing infrastructure for technology that we already have, because I think it's important that we have a broader reach. What we are seeing in some cases is we're having an impact potentially in downtown Silver Spring, but is that pushing it out to other parts of the county and instead of just addressing the crime overall? And so auto thefts are up substantially in both the region, the country, and in the county. And that's an area of great emphasis for us, both in terms of auto thefts as well as carjackings. And so it is an area of great emphasis, and both in terms of specialized details and technology that we are using forward. It will help us that we'll have a recruit class that's actively working right now towards graduation. And we expect our lateral class this year to be substantially larger than our previous years, which is the benefit of lateral transfers from other departments is that they get on the street much quicker than a fresh recruit class. And so we'll have an update about the lateral class over the next few weeks, but we're incredibly hopeful based on the candidates who have applied so far that we'll have a robust increase to our department based on the laterals.
Any more questions, Em?
No, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Members of the media, any more questions regarding any topics for the officials this afternoon? Raise your hand on the chat. No? Going once? Going twice? Are we done for today? Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Have a great afternoon. Stay safe. We'll see you again next time.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.